Hello, everybody. Saint Kaide back here again. It's a great day today. It is actually. It's Final Fantasy Day. This is the day that Final Fantasy was released in Japan, December 18th, 1987. Hard to believe it's been that long. I don't really have anything fancy to make for this, but I would hope that this video would stand as a tribute to to my status in the franchise as a whole, I suppose, at the moment. But two things chiefly this year. One is my foray into Final Fantasy XIV, and also another milestone for this year is the 30th anniversary of my personal favorite, Final Fantasy VI. Let's start with Final Fantasy XIV, I guess. I recall years ago people mentioning how exceptional the game is. I think it was 2014 when I heard that, though. I remember in 2010, after the lackluster thing that was 13, yeah, you heard me, I had heard that the next one would be an MO. Something at the time I couldn't afford to play, so I left it off, and honestly sort of left it for dead then, as well. As I said, in 2014 it was out for the PS4, I believe at that time, and completely redone. And then I saw people raving about best Final Fantasy game, top MMO since wow, can't wait for the next installment. I had not a clue what these people were talking about. Only that I knew it was there, and I had no idea there was even a failed attempt to now, and now there's a game. Okay then, whatever. Okay, but 10 years later to this year in June or July, I decided as a fan of this franchise and the world, and the words of some people who are now my friends. Hello to my Eorzeans, my friends there in Eorzea, by the way. You know who you are specifically here, though, what I'm talking about. I gave the trial a try. Since you can get to level 70 due to 2 whole expansions, etc., so why not? It's free. I was surprised by the game initially. I mean, I love doing side quests as much as the next person, and the main quest is great. It's Final Fantasy. The game reminds me of 12 in a way, with monsters around to attack if you want, or just attack you because you decide to walk into the field where they would inevitably kill you and eat your bones. No, thank you. I want my bones in me, thanks. I had to continue on, and to do that I had to buy and pay for subscriptions, and also because Dawn was released and cut me off from entering the server easily on trial mode. I digress. Since then I've had a crazy time, running up to level 100, and to the current game, to Dawn Trails actually, so many expansions to catch up with. I try not to talk too much more about 14, but I must say some things, in the spirit of this tribute, though, I guess. So one thing that strikes me in the game is all the references. That's, Final Fantasy even now always referencing itself. Every so often it would appear, a name would come up and I would immediately know, yep, that's a 5 reference if I ever saw one. Oh, I know that, it's from 4. Outside the great scenery and the combat, and of course the raids, party raids, what have you. I miss the music that does it for me as well. It may be overused, but the main theme never gets old to hear it. Another one is I'll never forget going into a quest out in Isleshire after going through the Dravania hinterlands to see a name all too familiar to someone like me, Matoya and her cave. Upon entering the cave, you hear a lovely rendition of FF1's Matoya's Cave, complete with backwards talking brooms in there and everything. I deliberately make the trek all the way out there just to listen to it on repeat. It brings me back to the early days, when I hear it. Another great moment for me was the Crystal Tower, and hearing references to a game I think is sadly lost in the mix, and that is 3. I won't spell any names or anything here, but to hear so many references and music from 3 is so great to hear after all this time. I heard Eternal Wind at that point in the game, and I just sat there and let it play, nearly in tears. And again, to carry on too much more with that, let's see here. I'll make one last mention here, and that is Kryl. The very mention of her name immediately brings me to 5. That was just a mention of the name in the background by Minfilia early on. Later on, you finally meet her in the game, and she's in probably one of the best outfits that I'm sure anyone who's played 5 will know. I wish I could get it back. I wish I could get that outfit, but alas, male characters cannot get it. Also with Kryl, this game has one of the few moments that really made me emotional. And there's a few in this game. This one is in a more recent event, in one of the newer expansions, a moment I'm sure anyone who has played more recently in the game will now recall, just by me mentioning it. It is a moment that quite literally broke me. I had to walk away, and I couldn't even continue playing that day. There were still a few hours left that I could have played, and I just couldn't. Such great writing. That's only part of the game, really. I want to again say hello to my Eorzean company, if they see this, and thank them for getting me involved in this, even if I'm completely behind and overwhelmed. Also, a shout out to all the others I've met along the way. Some apparently were surprised that I had gotten so far so fast, at great cost, I might add. I'm not really a fan of massive multiplayer games, and I feel very anxious playing this game sometimes. I have a few missteps that I'm not really proud of at all as well. And I admit it is hard to keep up with it all sometimes. But I will continue with it nonetheless, not just for my friends, but because the game has helped me in dark times again this year alone. Aside all that, if you can afford it, I will say I agree with those people from 10 years ago. It is a phenomenal game, and certainly now ranks high for me in this franchise. Now, to their major note and a milestone for this year, the 30th anniversary of 6. Another crazy thought. Has it really been that long since then? Wow. I remember the Moogle commercial so well from then. Next! I love that. It's great. You can see it on YouTube. It's great. I got it in 95, the next year that it had come out, because it came out in 94 in the US. And I was the only person that had the game, and that was the only reason that any of us played it, is because I had it. I mean, in the future, I will go more in depth about my experience about it and to talk more about it more in length. But to the milestone, though, it's great to see that everything about it since, from the endless debate about which is better, 6 or 7. It's 6, still, shots fired. To the character, art that people have done for the game that feature my favorite character, Tina, as she's called in the original Japanese, Terra, as everyone the world over knows her now. The remixes of music that people have done of the songs, quite literally, still played today for all sorts of reasons in their original version as well. And, truly one of the best RPGs, and probably aside a few other ones that you can think of, one of the most important games ever made. I will never forget turning on the game, TV at maximum volume, and like the prelude to Also Sprach Zarathustra, listen to that music as the intro comes in loud enough to wake a petrified character. It scared us, but with that, you knew that this was going to be like any other game as a lovely piano part comes in. And it wasn't. For the few short scenes after that followed, with a different story that was to come, and the introduction of the Magitech armor, obviously the Biggs and Wedge reference to Star Wars, and the witch that was there, who we learn who she is very shortly, to the opening credits of the lead motif of Terra's theme playing as the Magitech armors advance through the snow to Narsh. It indeed was not like any other game before it. I've seen that scene so many times, and I, just like many others, I'm sure, out there, can never forget that feeling of seeing that opening to this day, as we were changed by that game thereafter. Now, 30 years on, I hope I can run the new Pixel remaster in the near future when I get to that one, obviously. Not that I have stuff to do. Yeah, whether it's good or not, the legacy of 6 is still firmly intact in gaming today, regardless of that, though, and I'm happy that it's still here to go. I hope it gets its due in the future. What that is, I don't know, and honestly, not for me to decide. So, to sum up this tribute, I go back again to 2014 when this was originally posted. My friend asked me to answer a question then. I posted it on Facebook. It is haphazard, to say the least, the original one. So I will now say it's edited out to not sound like a complete idiot here, but I think it sums up the question that he asked, obviously. And it probably perfectly encapsulates the love of these games and just, what it is now. His question was, why do I like Final Fantasy? Well, why, you ask? In the many years I've played any of these games, I've always come back to these games. I can't keep away from that at all. It's impossible. Maybe it's because I was depressed or feeling awesome, and it was a good day to absolutely wail on things that live in a forest. There's a sense of release that I got from these, playing these games many years back. And sometimes you needed that. Life does hit hard. Sometimes, and of all people, I should know. Even in my darkest times, these games were here for me. And you can relate to some of these characters, and that's, I bet, why it does attract other people looking for, back at what characters they like from these games as well. Many years ago, though, I never really just kind of played the games and never really thought about them too hard. Not to say that I didn't at all. I did from time to time, but finally one day I decided to actually look closer at the games when I had thought of doing it. There's some really good lessons to be learned from these games, like hope, standing up for yourself, finding love, and in some cases, how not to be a jerk to your friends. Again, aside from apart from all that personal stuff that you can get from it, I would say what I like is the stories. These games are real stories, not like Call of Duty with its World War II or Modern Warfare kind of story. These games are genuine stories. People appear, things happen, people die along the way, people learn from each other along the way. Where people do funny things, people do shocking things. Will they get out? Will they make it to the end? What's the next battle? And so on. The story is almost endless. And no matter what, these stories never get old. I don't think I can ever forget these stories, like a good book you read. That's how much of an impression these games have left on me. In the end, these games are fantasies, some people say, after all. How can they be so important? How can they be people's way of life? How can so much be devoted to one franchise? People do it like me, so there must be something behind it. I will say that these games sometimes, beat running around shooting an FPS or puzzling to death, but only sometimes, of course. Also, these games have crawled into people's hearts and minds after 37 years. I will always recall raging against someone else's NES or SNES or mine that I have here now when things were rough, but still continuing anyway. I recall the music, as I mentioned over and over again, which is quite literally some of the best in gaming, and humming them over and over again. The characters are just so memorable over the years, and some of them are parts of moments that will forever leave a mark on people. I don't even think I need to mention any. I'm sure people could make a list right now as I'm sitting here mentioning it. So I must sound crazy after all this. Over the years, it's true that Final Fantasy has slipped a bit, of course. I'm not going to say that it hasn't. Lest we forget, though, that even some franchises have bad games. It doesn't really tarnish or diminish the legacy of that at all in people. Looking back, and to quote the creator of the series in an article that I read once, Sakaguchi, Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy if it has a blue window with text in it. I do see what he's saying, his vague point, but there has to be, more to that phrase. It must be, and he did thankfully elaborate in this article that there was. So as he goes on to say, now all these games do have a similar blue window, but always have new ideas, fresh ideas. And that makes each game so different, but yet somehow similar. And that's what makes it Final Fantasy. Truly profound. So it didn't occur to me at first. Still, though, I remember these games more and appreciate them more as time goes on. The time work that must have taken to make these. Look at what happened with 14. The stories that have to be told, the enemies you have to face, the friends you will make and enjoy for years and lament for their loss. The odd quest that you have to do for the next best or rather horrible item you might get. It certainly doesn't look like an easy task to make these games. The end result is always worth the look, if nothing else. As I say a lot, even if it is just a legend. Not bad for something that was supposed to be final. Happy 37th anniversary, Final Fantasy.